My guest today is a woman who has walked the path of two marriages and come out stronger and on top of it all. Zeenah joins us at BlueSitron today to share her story, to let young ladies and women out there know that there is strength in strong willpower, how to recognize red flags, and when to know you've done your best and time to leave and live for you and your kids, if you have any kids, that is. My name is Bimbola. Feel free to call me Bim, and welcome to the BlueSitron podcast. Today, we'll be talking about a topic, or should I say, a reason for finding yourself. Essentially, the theme is about finding yourself. Hi, Zeenah. Welcome to BlueSitron.
Hi, Bimbo, and thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. So, Zina, as I said in just a few seconds ago in the intro, I said that you are a woman who's walked the path of two marriages, and you mentioned that to me already.
Yeah.
So, I would like us to start with, we would like to know you, of course, and also I'd like you to also start with, what led to your first marriage with Mr. Joe.
Okay, so I'm a mother of three. I'm 46 years old, and I'm a pharmacist by profession. Um, I met Mr. Joe, I think I was in college, so he was my first love. Things were fine. I won't say perfect, but you know, it was one of those relationships that you grew together. Um,
Mhm.
So went to uni. He was already qualified. He had done uni. Um, and then we got married. I had my first child in my third year of studying,
Okay.
but still got through uni. Um, and then just as I started my career, then I had my second child. Um,
Yes.
then we, I think by this time we'd bought a property or two, and then because we needed somewhere bigger, because I'm a family woman, but he's one of these type of people that would help anybody.
Okay.
So I thought anyway. And then he decided we should move up East Anglia.
Okay.
Which for me, they always say you follow your husband, you do this. So work-wise, it wasn't a problem. East Anglia then did not have enough pharmacists, so work was fine.
Okay.
But what I didn't know at the time was he did not intend to move full time. So what he was doing was just be home at the weekend. And I
Oh,
had no idea that was what was going to happen.
okay.
Obviously, we talked about it, and he was like, "Oh, when his contract finishes, he would move," but it never really happened. Then we were also desperate for childcare because I had to work.
Yeah.
Um, then I think one of his friends brought a lady that could help out. At the beginning was fine, and I think when I look back, I'm very naive because I just take people for who they are. Like I
Mhm.
don't. I tried to judge on my own, and she came across really nice, very helpful with cooking. So it was just a relief for me. It wasn't
Mhm.
that obviously I couldn't do these things I could, but it was a lot to work full time, sort the kids out as well, on my own because it was just me during the week. So it was
Right.
a nice addition. I treated her like a sister, so whatever she needed, I gave. I always, if I bought something for myself, I would ask her what she wanted, and it went on like that. But then I noticed some changes in her. Um, but what I didn't realize is she wanted my husband.
Wow.
So
Let me
yeah,
pause you there.
yeah.
So sorry about that, Zina. What
Nothing.
was your husband doing for work that made him
Oh,
not to wanted to move the family to East Anglia, but he wanted a weekend situation without even communicating it at first? What was he doing for work himself?
so he was an accountant,
Okay.
self-employed. So he would subcontract from different big companies.
Right. Okay.
Um, and at the time, I don't know if it
Mhm.
was maybe my desperation to not feel overwhelmed by so many people in the house. Because as I
Okay.
said, he would be, if any of his friends needed help, they would be in our house. And imagine coming from work and having to cook for all these people with our culture.
Yeah.
But people forget that the person that is cooking also went to work 9 to 5, 9 to 6, like all of these people.
And this is UK.
Um,
People should also fend for
ex-
themselves rather than you having to
exactly,
cook for them. This is not
exactly.
Nigeria.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I didn't
Hmm.
mind doing it, but then
Okay.
you're after a while you can't carry on. You're
Yes,
a
that's
human
right.
being, your body gets tired.
Yeah.
And I think what irritated me the most was I couldn't breathe because there was just someone everywhere. So I'm like, okay, if you want to have people in the house, I don't actually mind, but we need somewhere bigger because we were living in a 3 bedroom maisonette. So there'll be people sleeping
Okay.
in the floor in the sitting room, and it was just a lot, you
All
know.
right.
And as I said, I must have been naive because I wasn't thinking of, oh, the further you go out, the more affordable you will get for bigger houses. I didn't think
Yeah.
about all those things at the time, and obviously he thought about that.
Yeah.
But I just wish I was a bit more vocal as to this is a bit too far out from our family, especially my family anyway.
Hmm.
Um, so it
And
I
your
wouldn't
family
say,
was in London.
yeah, so I've got
Okay.
a brother here. My parents visit, but they don't
Okay.
live here.
Okay.
So you can just imagine nobody will come and visit because they'll be like, oh, you're an hour and a half out. We
Yeah, of
can't just come
course.
and visit. It's something we have to plan all day.
Yeah.
And you become isolated.
Hmm.
So with this lady helping out, what she started off with was probably getting him isolated from his friends. So she will make up all these stories, believable stories, because at the time I believed it, even though some were a bit difficult. So the funny thing was the person that introduced my ex-husband to her was a very good friend of his. He
Okay.
at the time said he was dating the girl.
Oh.
Somehow it came up that she said they were not dating. It just
Oh.
was messy. So they started, obviously, it became an argument between them and they weren't friendly. And I remember leading up to us finding the help, this guy, so my ex's friend, didn't really
Hmm.
have a job, like a steady job. So he helped out with the kids. He would come and help out. And
Okay.
apparently, the story this girl told my ex was he must have told her that he saw me in a different way. And if it wasn't for him, he would have tried it on with me. And it obviously put my ex's back up. That's where
Of
the problem
course.
sort of started. And I just looked back thinking, I don't ever remember that man ever disrespecting me in any way.
Hmm.
But obviously, if you're hearing from a third person that has come from the outside and said they're looking, but why would you throw your supposed boyfriend under the bus? So
Absolutely.
it was very, very messy.
And calculated. Sounds
Yeah, very,
calculated.
very calculated. Then she would wear clothes that I don't know how to put it. Even I remember my mom pulling her up on it once, saying, "Why are you dressed like this?" And then it downgraded to she would not cook anymore, which didn't bother me because it was just a bonus. So I'll
Was
cook.
she living in your house?
It was just me, her, and the kids. Yeah.
Oh, I
So,
see.
and at the
Was
beginning,
she from Nigeria as well?
yeah, she was. And at the beginning,
And was
my
she a
ex,
student or what was her background?
no,
How did
so
she get to the UK?
I I don't really know her background properly. I know
Okay.
she came and stayed with her sister looking for work.
Okay.
I can't say she was here legally because a lot of these things
Okay.
came out in the end.
I see.
Yeah, so
Hmm.
it just went downhill. Then it became her cooking at the weekends when hubby would be
Is in
coming.
town.
All of a
Yeah.
sudden there's food. So slowly but surely I started seeing different things that were not just right. But then again, I will call myself a chicken at that time. I don't like confrontation. And when I had no proof, proper proof, it's very difficult to confront the situation.
Yeah.
Anyway, in the end, how it all came out was a friend called and said, "Look, your husband has been flaunting this girl around in London while you're stuck with the kids. You better, open your eyes." And I just had, it got to a stage where I had enough. To get her out of the house, his cousin that had lived with us for months was around in the country visiting. So I called her because what I didn't want was to tell her to leave, and then she said I did something to her. So I
Mm-hmm.
needed a witness. But
Mm-hmm.
as if this girl knew, before I got back from London with his cousin, she'd left the house.
Huh.
She'd left the house. Um,
Hmm.
but what I then found out later on that he's put her up in one of our properties in a room. So it just all came out, even though he kept on denying it, denying it. Anyway, eventually, it was just all the mind games of, him saying all sorts of, oh, if anything happens to her, you've looked at her, gone through her property. I didn't even touch anything. His cousin did. And I just thought, why are you so bothered about her? What about your wife and your children? Then it turned out that they were seeing each other because his cousin that lived in the house in London that he would be in during the week just said, Auntie, how have you not noticed something is wrong? Um, and yeah, it just went downhill from there. She got deported. He went home to get married to her while he was still married to me. His
Wow.
sister rang me and like, what the hell are you doing? Your husband is getting married today. And I was just in shock. And with time, because he stayed away for 6 months, with time, I was bold enough to just accept my life was, not my life was over, but that part of my life was over.
Was
I,
over.
yeah, changed
How much
locks, everything.
how much
Yeah.
younger was this lady?
Oh, not that much younger. Maybe 3 years
Right.
younger than me, 3, 4. So I don't think it was an age thing. Um,
Right.
but
Okay.
with some of the confrontations,
Yeah.
he made comments like, "I'm not the type of girl he would normally marry anyway." He liked light-skinned people. I'm not light-skinned. I'm
Wow.
dark-skinned.
Wow.
So I did ask him. I was like, "Why did you waste, 14 years of our life? Why?"
Exactly. If he
He
knew
said,
what he
"No,
wanted,
no."
why bother?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
so I would never understand it. I remember him coming home after 6 months, and I changed the locks, and he went mad. And this is me really scared, but as he's shouting, I'm like, well, you might as well just come and kill me. Forgetting the kids are right next to me, and they
Mm.
start crying. Then he comes to his senses, and he was like, oh, I just want to pick up things from the house. He came, and he just switched on me. He just decided to pin me down. I was like, you're my wife and you're going to sleep with me tonight. And I'm like, where have you been all this while? Like, I'll just be
Mm.
there. It was just a
Mm.
horrible night.
Nightmare.
It was,
Hmm.
I just lay there basically. It was awful.
Oh dear.
So it's just one of those
And where
things
is he
that,
now?
well, I've heard he's married twice over.
Oh,
They're still
really?
together.
That
Yes.
lady
Yeah.
left him.
No, she's there, but he's married somebody else as well.
Okay. So basically, he's going by the rule of being a Muslim. I'm
Yeah.
guessing he's a Muslim. So
Yes.
he feels
Yes.
he can marry four. He's
Yes.
forgetting the fact that it's clear in the Holy Book that you can marry up to four or so if
Yeah.
you can treat everyone equally, which
Right.
is almost impossible,
Impossible. Right.
really.
Right.
So, oh yeah, this is interesting. Okay, so the lessons that we've learned from that is that maybe a little bit of alertness, obviously, as you say, you're non-confrontational,
Yeah.
but the attitude this woman was already bringing up was enough to,
Right.
show some red flags for
Right.
you. Like, okay,
Right.
why is she suddenly doing this? What have you done wrong? If you haven't done anything wrong,
Right.
what's going on from your husband's side? Why is she only cooking when the man comes over,
Right.
during the weekend and all of that? But
Right.
yeah, anyway, good riddance to Mr. Joe. I mean,
Right.
now he's married someone on top of her. So
Right.
hopefully she knows what it feels like now. Because, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes these women do these things and they think it's fun. It's not fun. And also more importantly is the time to spend with, the children. I don't
Right.
know why some men do this, because they forget that no one stays the same forever, and we all
Right.
don't stay young forever. You get to a
No.
stage in your life whereby you actually need your kids,
Very
and
true.
then you have to treat them right now, because if you don't treat them right at this stage, is it when you're 70, 75, 80? Is that when you want to treat them right, when they already have their own lives to live?
Exactly.
I don't know. I've heard so much about a lot of, men. I mean, I don't want to paint an entire continent the same way, because people are different, but these are just, peculiarities when it comes to, probably I should say, Nigeria, and also more importantly, tradition,
Yeah.
a little bit of religion, intertwined
Yeah.
into that. But anyway,
Yeah.
let's move on to your second husband, Mr. Doe.
Right.
So, what was the deciding factor behind you, marrying this guy? How did you meet him? Why did you feel you should marry him? And what happened
Mm. So with
afterwards?
Mr. Doe, I had been on my own for about 8 years by this time. I was back in London, close to family,
Mhm,
working still, had help this time from my aunt, who'd retired quite early. So she was able to
okay.
help me with the kids. So it was never about, oh, um, there was issues with childcare. It wasn't that. But you get to a stage
Mhm.
in your life and you think, well, you've healed now, let's try again.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
because life can be very, very, especially in this country, lonely. The
Hmm.
kids were still young. They weren't old enough for me to have conversations. Well, adult conversations with them anyway.
Hmm.
So I was part of a direct selling business. We used
Hmm.
to have meetings every, I think it was Wednesdays. So after
Hmm.
work, I'll just go, and that was in a way kind of bringing me back out into the world, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
The kids work, that was it. I didn't really have a social life, and I'm not um social that way anyway. When I'm comfortable with people, then I will get all loud and stuff, but generally I'm quiet.
Hmm. Hmm.
So this was supposed to probably bring me out of my shell. We would talk about business, we'll read books, just to
Hmm.
encourage you to be bold and creative.
Yeah.
So Mr. Doe was a security guard for it was a big hotel chain.
Okay.
Um, and he was just very polite. Every Wednesday, he would say hello. I would say hello. I'll carry on. He would carry on. And we just got friendly. That was it. We would talk and stuff. I even remember the day he wanted my number. I was
Hmm.
kind of trying to dodge it because I wasn't just sure at the time.
Yeah.
Um,
And fair
and
enough. Yeah.
yeah, and he did chase me around the hotel that day. Eventually got my number and right in front of me rang the number, and I was like, thank God I gave the right number. But then maybe that was already a red flag. I don't know
Yeah,
because
that could be.
he rang, he
Just to
rang the
check if you were
number.
lying or if you were not
Yeah,
lying, in terms of the
yeah,
number. Yeah.
yeah. And I mean, it was a pretty quick relationship because I tried to follow Islam as much as possible.
Yeah.
We did nikah so quickly within 3 months, I think it was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it wasn't long. Um, and then um, we both got a house together. Obviously, he had a good relationship with my kids at the beginning.
Okay.
And I remember even the first day, the day he proposed was in front of my uncle and aunts
Okay.
for the first time. My uncle felt comfortable because my uncle just wanted to be sure that I'm not making the same mistake, I guess.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
little did they know.
Yeah. He was just
And
looking
then
out for you, wasn't he,
for
your
me, yeah,
uncle? Yeah.
yeah, it was just looking out for me. And then, yeah, we moved. Things were fine. I had a little girl with him, and it was
Hmm.
from after having the baby things changed. I
Right.
don't know if he became insecure. So, um, he would go to work He could just
Uh-huh.
come back all of a sudden, and I'll be in the kitchen doing something, and maybe it was him thinking I'm doing something else, so he would just turn up, and he'd be like, "Oh, I couldn't go today. I didn't feel well enough," and I'm like, "All right, that's fine. Just call work." Um,
Uh-huh.
but later on, you realize that actually he didn't trust me. Um,
Right.
I just didn't understand it because I know I'd never given him cause to worry.
Not to trust you,
And
exactly.
I've been on my own for 8 years. Why wouldn't I have done it then? Why now? There were just so many reasons for him not to feel that type of way. I'm never the type to have male friends or anything like that. Normal work colleagues, but that's as far as it got.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so um, I remember once I had gone to get the monthly food and bits for the baby. And
Uh-huh.
maybe because I was a bit too long, there and then he rang me and he said, video chat me where you are right now. So I did. I'm like, where do you think I am? I'm where I said I was going. And his excuse was, well, your mom's been looking for you. She's been ringing and worried. And I was just worried. And I thought, that's not enough to start screaming to video chat where you are. He's
Exactly.
even lucky that I'm the type that would do it. Some other ladies would just be, if that's your problem, I told you where I'm going and get over it.
Yeah.
Once I went to work, he maybe he didn't believe I was. Remember once saying I'm in traffic, he rang and video chatted. Thank God my daughter was with me so she could hold it. I said, where do you think I am? So these were all these little things, but we're already married and I'm thinking, I don't understand why he's anxious. There were no reasons. I think if I was that type, I could understand. But what I didn't know and that I knew later on was he had mental issues.
Uh-huh.
Um, he had never shown a sign before, but obviously he was now beginning to have an episode.
Okay.
What triggered it so bad was both his parents passed away in the space of 2 months, and it was just hell basically because he did something to the front door, so to go out I needed his permission because only his keys worked to get in. Even if it was raining heavily, he would take his time. You could hear he's at the door, but you can figure out that he's checking that there's nobody else with you.
Wow.
He did this with myself and the kids. If myself and my daughter were having a joke, he needed to know what we were laughing about. He wanted to be in all the time on all the conversations, and he just stopped work. He said he couldn't study and work because he had always said he wanted to study. I said, okay, fine. If it's just for about 6, 7 months, I'm sure I can cope on my wages for both of us. But
Yeah.
he never went back to work. He finished the 2 courses he wanted to do. I even typed his assignments for him because I can touch type. So I thought, oh, let me just help.
Yep.
But it was just everything just went downhill. He
Mm.
would, apart from locking the door, I remember having a hysterectomy because I got really poorly after my third child. He
Okay.
didn't come to the hospital. Instead, he would keep on calling me, like, when are you coming home? And I'm thinking, I've just had a major operation. Where do you want me? How, quickly do you expect me to get back home?
Yeah.
He then tried to stop me talking to many people, a lot of my old friends. He got me to delete my Facebook, even though I never really used it. Um, just
So
to take
this
control of
guy,
everything. Yeah,
exactly, this guy was very controlling. So I
right,
put a couple of things down as you were talking, and thank you so much for that.
mm,
He has a problem with trust
right,
issues, obviously. The fact that he will tell you to video chat where you are and he's screaming and all that kind of stuff. And the fact that, you needed permission to even step out. Well, that's just
right.
preposterous. But this is okay. I respect and I understand that you say you wanted to follow, the teachings
Yeah,
and lessons of Islam and all of that. However, I know people do say, oh, you can meet someone and stay with, spend 10 years with someone and the person will still be the wrong person. And you
right,
can meet someone for like a month or two and 70 years later, you're still together.
right.
But in some cases also, maybe a bit of a longer courtship would have even helped, because you did say it
Yeah,
was pretty fast within 3 months,
it was
you're
fun.
done the
Yeah,
Nikai.
yeah.
Exactly. So there wasn't enough time, I suppose. Maybe he didn't show who he was during the dating
Yeah, there was just
process.
nothing to show. The
Yeah.
only thing I can say that should have made me, but then the way he explained it made me feel comfortable. He did have a previous relationship, so he has got two kids from a previous relationship,
Okay.
which who he doesn't see them, or he doesn't get a chance to see them. But what he said at the time, his side of the story was he went to work, came back, and his partner and the kids had disappeared.
And did he make
They
any
had
efforts to find them?
Oh, he did. From the
Okay.
stories I
From
heard,
what
he
he
tried
said.
to, yeah.
Yeah,
So because I've only got one side of the story.
that's the
I
thing.
know
Yeah.
when we got together, I know he
Mhm.
did get a chance to speak to his kids probably once a week, but then
Okay.
it was very off and on. Um, it really depend. I don't know. On his side, would be dependent on how the mother felt, whether he could see. But then he said he obviously had a mental breakdown from that, which anybody would have if you come back from work and your family have gone. But
And
for me,
and if that is the truth.
and if that's the truth, this is why
Yeah.
when everything came to a head, I always said to myself, if I got a chance to speak to his first partner, it would be good to find out what made her leave with the children.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. Because definitely the first partner had, I mean, definitely is the definitely right term, but at least she would have some friends or
Oh.
family or
Mm-hmm,
someone, so they would also know. But it's a
mm-hmm,
case of even, knowing who that first partner was, which can
mm,
be, a needle in a haystack.
of
But,
course.
it's a case of knowing who that person is and getting time
Mm,
to actually, talk to the person and all of that. But you've done the best that you could,
yeah.
given the circumstances. And you talk about losing his parents within the space of 2 months. Was he a
Yeah.
child when he lost his parents, or was he an adult?
Oh no. So in that period of with him, so I was there when he lost both parents.
Okay, so it was a matured man. It
Yeah,
was
yeah,
a
yeah.
grown-up man.
Oh
Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Okay, I respect that. Yes, people handle, grief and a lot of things
yeah,
differently. So that could have contributed to his issues and all of
yeah,
that. But I'm. This is just me guessing because I mean
yeah.
I don't know, but I'm guessing it's probably tougher to lose both parents as a child, than as a full blown,
I see what you mean. Yeah.
adult when you have your own kids already.
Mm,
When I mean, but again, I don't know. I'm not going to judge on that, but I
yeah,
just wanted to be sure of how much of effects this had on him when he lost his parents within the space of 2 months. If it was, a teenager, if it was a
yeah,
kid, or if it was, maybe even in his early 20s. Clearly, that wasn't the case. It was a full blown man with kids, with two kids. And
yeah,
then, of course, with the baby you have together with him, three
yeah.
kids. But yeah. Okay, so you were in the hospital, and he didn't think it was necessary for him to come. That was another red
So his
flag.
excuse was he was looking after my little one.
Okay,
Um, but and then again, luckily for me, my parents were around, so my mom was in hospital all the time, and my son was
okay,
old enough to come.
okay,
But there was a lot going on in his head by this time because he thought my brother was gonna hurt him. So I, he was really pleased that I missed my brother's 40th, and I only missed it because I was in hospital. The op fell on the same weekend that they were doing a surprise party for my brother.
okay.
I was gutted, but for him it was perfect because he didn't want me to go.
Oh
So
my
it was,
goodness.
yeah, he didn't want me to go.
So it was
It
trying
was
to
perfect.
isolate you as well, not just
Oh yeah, from my
isolating you
family.
from
Yeah.
friends, isolating you from your family.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. He always had
these,
something to say.
yeah,
Always.
right.
Anyway,
Huh.
when it came to a head, the final straw was, I had got back from work and he said if my kids don't leave, something would happen. And at first I ignored him because I was just thinking he's in one of those moods
Oh
again.
my goodness.
Um,
Yeah.
but then he started pacing the house and said they have to leave. If not, so I told my son to get hold of his dad. Thankfully, his dad was around, picked
Okay.
them up without any questions, which I'm really grateful for.
Yeah.
because my other ex can be funny, but he just came, picked up the kids and left.
Mhm.
And then what my ex proceeded to do is go through the kids' room, came up with my sons. I don't know if it was a fan saying, "Oh, we can borrow this till when they get back." And I was like, "They're not going for long. You wanted them out for, one night. Obviously, I'm worried." Well, he just wanted them out for at least a month. But I thought, I can't live without my kids. You met me when I had them, and
Mhm.
you always
Mhm.
said you had no problems with them. He went through my daughter's room, found some dollars. He goes, "Did you know your daughter?" I was like, "Yes," because she got it from a party. She had gone to a wedding with her dad, and I knew
Mhm.
about the money. And then what I did is I just had the night with my little one, and then
Mhm.
on my way to work the next morning, I called my mother. They
Mhm.
had left the country, but my mom was already saying to me before she left, she goes, "Something is not right.
Yeah.
This is your second mistake," and that really hurt me. But she was frustrated because of the way he was behaving with her. Because I know at one point he did upset her, and she rang me crying and said, "You've made your second mistake." So
Mm.
um,
Mm.
that broke my heart. But I remember I just rang my mom. I was like, "Look, he's kicked the kids out. I
Yeah.
don't know what to do." So she rang my brother. My brother went ape. Then my brother, I finished work on that. Then my brother called a family friend that he knew I would listen to, because I said to my brother not to worry. I'm sure I'll be able to sort it out. But I knew my brother knew I couldn't.
Yeah.
So that family friend of mine just went mad at me and said, "You never let a man come between you and your kids. Never."
Absolutely.
And then I
Absolutely.
said to her, it wasn't about getting a man between my kids. I was scared, and I'd
Mhm.
rather they be safe than
Mhm.
spending the night and waiting to see what he would do next. It wasn't worth it for me.
Yeah.
Anyway, in the evening I got back and I had psyched myself out. So I was bored enough and said, "Look, the kids are coming back." He just went mad up and down the stairs. Why can't they stay with their dad? What's wrong with them? And I was like, why do they aggravate you,
Mhm.
so much? Anyway, my brother
Obviously, your
comes home.
kids are growing up now, so
Yeah,
he probably can't stand grown-ups around him, you
probably.
know. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
my brother got came down. Um he had locked the door. So this is my ex had locked the door. So he couldn't let my brother in. He said he wouldn't let him in.
Mm.
And I was just like, but I need to speak to my brother. He said, "Well, you then have to go." I was like, "I'm not going out because my little one's there." Because by
Exactly.
this time I knew how angry he was. Anyway, my brother calls the police by this time, saying that I've been falsely imprisoned.
Good.
And my ex calls the police and said my brother has weapons and he's scared for his life. So then I had the choice to ring the
Oh.
police, screaming down the phone saying my brother has no weapons. And I just kept on thinking, if we were in
Thankfully, this
America,
is UK.
that is what I
Yeah.
said. I even remember shouting. I was like, "Have you even thought about what you've just done?" I had lost
Exactly.
my voice by this time. I did not care what next was going to happen to me. There were just so many things leading up to that night, because by this time I wasn't allowed to wear certain things. I had to show him before I bought clothes.
Oh my goodness.
He would stand next to me and give me bitter cola and ginger for me to lose weight. I had to eat that every day right in front of him. He would,
What a
if he was
controlling
gonna,
guy.
yeah, if he was gonna abuse me, verbally abuse me,
Yeah.
he would be so deep that I'll be in so much pain from the words he was using.
And he uses
Um,
Yoruba, right?
he would say it in English. He would say
In
it in
English.
English. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Is
yeah,
it, but
yeah.
is he a Yoruba guy?
He's a Yoruba guy, yeah, yeah. But he would say it
Okay.
in English.
Because I know it
Um,
hits different when it's when it's,
yeah, you're
when the insults are in Yoruba, it's
he
different.
would say it in English. But it's the disgust that way he will look at me as well when he's insulting me. Um,
And you are an established woman, a pharmacist, a
yeah,
mother. And he was doing, and there's nothing wrong with being a security guard, with all due respect
yeah,
to people that chose to do that job. There's
yeah,
nothing wrong with it. But the
yeah,
fact that you weren't only a pharmacist, but you were also doing direct selling, you know,
yeah,
basically making a way for yourself. And you got
right.
together with him. This guy should actually have learned from you. Oh my goodness, I
Yeah,
love my wife so much. This is what she's doing. Superwoman, da, da,
yeah,
da. What can I learn from her? But instead, he was getting paranoid over nothing.
Yeah. Oh, he
He
stopped
was
me from the direct
insecure
selling.
over nothing. He stopped you from
Right.
the direct selling.
Oh yeah, he stopped it.
Ugh,
He stopped
what a
it. He
guy.
stopped that. He stopped that. He went on and on till I had to stop.
Wow.
And then yeah, so when I then called the police, going back
Mm-hmm,
to that story, they eventually knew something was wrong, so they had to calm down.
mm-hmm.
They came, but he had locked the door and wouldn't open the door for them. So he was given a warning outside that if he didn't open the door within minutes, he would be in trouble. So he opened the door. They
Mm.
separated us. I was put in the reception and he was put in the kitchen. You could see the in from the kitchen to reception, you can see what's going on in the kitchen because you've got clear doors.
Okay, okay.
So they told him to sit down because obviously they needed to take control of the situation.
Yeah.
So I went on to explain bits and pieces of what was going on, but he kept on getting up. Oh, I need to get my charger, and they kept on saying you need to stay where we've put you. I don't think it was 10 minutes when one of the police women said to me, "How long has he been controlling you? Because I can see everything." And I just, I looked at her. She goes, "It's nothing to be ashamed of. I've seen it so many times and I
Mm,
can see it here." Anyway, he wouldn't then, I think he got up again and they got angry and they handcuffed him.
mm.
But what they didn't realize was he had the keys to the house and he had locked them in the house. So
Jeez.
when it was time to take him out, he would not release the key and they couldn't find it on him. So they had to call back up and get our door broken. So three
Wow.
other police, it was just such a palaver. But by this time I was numb, tired,
Yeah, anyone
had my
would be.
little one. Yeah, just had my little one there. And I just knew from that moment I was done. But I think I had a bit of adrenaline and felt nothing. But when everything, when you start thinking about it after they took him away that night, I just fear set in. So I was now like, okay, I know I don't want him back in the house. What am I now going to do? So I think the next day the police rang and said they were going to charge him. But then they found out on his history that he had some kind of mental health. So he got sectioned under the mental health act for a month.
Right, right.
And by this time, obviously, his family now were involved because my mother had to ring one of his siblings and said, "Look, this is what's happened.
Mm-hmm.
You guys need to sort your brother out." And he's not been back since. I mean, he's tried to come back, but I was able to get a non-molestation order for a year. That gave me enough time to recover, get
Yeah,
myself normal, sort the children out. I
well
got my
done.
kids back that night, thankfully.
Yeah,
Or the next night. So not the night he was taken away, the next night.
right.
And they were so unsettled because they're
They would
teenagers. They were
be.
so unsettled, even though they were with their dad, they weren't comfortable.
Mm,
My second born just kept on crying. She goes, "I've always lived with you. I don't want to live with dad." And I was like,
yeah,
honestly, I'll sort it out. Anyway, they came back the next night.
okay.
Um, Mentally, it's affected my second born. So if there's any stress,
Mm-hmm.
anything that stresses her out, her body reacts to it. So she'll get like hand tremors.
Okay.
Um, it's just been sad. We've had to go into hospital and out so many times for appointment just to make sure she's okay. But
How
she
about
reacts to
therapy?
stress.
How about
Um,
therapy? Even for
So
all of you.
I've had therapy, well, a little bit. My
Okay.
son says it's okay, but she wouldn't, my second born wouldn't talk to anyone really. Little by little, I'm getting little bits of information out of her when she feels comfortable to talk. I mean, we're
Yeah,
in a better place
that's
than we
nice.
were. And what I've noticed with her is she's more vocal with how she feels. And I think that's her way of dealing with stuff. So if
Yeah.
she sees something she doesn't like, she doesn't keep quiet anymore. She'll just say it.
Should just say it.
And
That's good.
yeah, she'll
But I
say
still
it.
think therapy is still good. If,
Yeah,
even
yeah,
though your son says it's good, but I mean, it's, to be
yeah.
honest, I don't think it will hurt.
Yeah,
It
true.
would be nice if they can still do it
Yeah,
for a couple of times. It would really be nice given the experience they've had with this man, this Mr. Doe, this,
yeah.
second husband. So yeah. How long were you married to him for, this man,
Yeah.
the second husband?
I think it was about 4 years if I'm thinking of the nikah. It was about four
Okay.
years. Yeah.
4 years. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, but obviously it's just separation for now. So there's
Yeah,
no divorce yet.
no yet, no.
Okay. But this is this something that you think you would do in terms of the divorce? Would you
Oh yeah,
proceed
yeah,
with the
yeah. Oh,
divorce?
100%. I will. It's just I've got other
Excellent.
priorities in terms of my life right now. So as long as
Excellent.
he understands there's nothing. Obviously
Yeah.
he's better now and he's asked to cut, but I know that I'm done. So and he
Yeah.
understands it now. Um, but yeah, he wouldn't. I know he won't divorce me. I have to do it. So once I've
Mm.
sorted myself out, then I will.
And your in-laws, I mean his family,
Yeah.
do they know about his mental state?
Well, apparently they always knew. So that's
And they
when.
didn't say anything to you?
So that was another thing he did. He isolated me from his family. If they ever
Oh
sent
my
me a message, he
goodness.
wanted to read the message.
Oh
So I
my
couldn't.
goodness.
So I couldn't speak freely to any of them. But this was way into the relationship. It was one of those ones where his older brother is just what maybe 10, 15 minutes away, but he painted his older brother in a way like a monster, if I put it that way. The way he would,
Mm.
as if the person has no emotion. And since this has happened, I've gotten to know his older brother, and he's not a bad guy at all.
Oh
I was
dear.
closer to his brother that lived in the US.
In the
I
US, right.
Yeah, and I
Yeah, because your
remember.
line is breaking a little bit. So
Okay,
if you hear me repeating what you're saying, is because I'm trying to reiterate
yeah,
it, just because the line went a little bit,
can you
wonky.
hear me now?
Yeah, I can. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So the
yeah.
one in the US when he found out was ringing me frantically because I think he forgot about the time difference. I think he thought I didn't
Ah,
want to pick up the phone. When I
right,
woke up in the night after days of not having much sleep, I remember picking up or ringing him, and he was like, "Oh, I've been looking for you." But then he could hear my voice that it's completely gone from
right.
all the trauma. And he was like, "But why
Ah,
didn't you say anything?" I said, "Because I wasn't allowed to speak to you. It wasn't
oh
like I
dear.
wanted to." So,
It
yeah.
wasn't like you didn't want to speak with them. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you were kept away from them. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. But you know what? One thing I want to ask that I think, anyone that comes across this podcast is to know the lessons you've learned, because you do say you're much better now.
Yeah.
And also, your kids are good. But of course, as I said, it would be good if they do go into therapy. But what
Yeah.
lessons have you learned by being at this point in time in a good mental state for you and for your gorgeous kids?
Well, I think number one for anybody is if
Mhm.
something does not feel right, don't go ahead. There were many times in through the whole process at the beginning that I would question and think, oh, am I being overly questioning because of what happened in my first relationship? But I think it's
Mhm.
always good to follow your instincts. They're there
Yep.
for a reason.
Yep.
They are there
Yeah.
for a reason. I think the second thing is you need to learn to be bold. Um,
Yeah.
I can be very, very timid in a relationship, which isn't good because for them is weakness and they can do what they like.
Yeah.
So you need to be as
Absolutely.
bold as they are. If you're not happy with something, you need to be vocal about it.
Absolutely.
Um, and also don't settle for anything that is below what you're looking for. It's just
Yeah.
not worth it. When I look back, I feel like maybe I was just so desperately wanting to be loved, that I
Mm.
didn't see anything else because it had been such a long time.
Yeah.
And, um, good things come to those who wait. For me, 8 years was a
Yeah.
long time, but I don't think, I think it was meant to happen. Obviously, this is part of my story, but I
Mhm.
was meant to learn a lesson from it. And I
Yeah.
feel those are the things. Just follow your instinct, be bold, and don't settle for anything less than what you want. It's not worth it.
Thank you so much, Zena. Thank you for sharing the story. But yeah, I hear you on that instinct, boldness, and not settling. And you know what? I mean, I'm not going to fault you as well because our society, I mean, not just in Nigeria or Africa or whatever, lots of societies, marriage is a big deal in the sense
Mhm.
of, being married. And when you're not married, you're looked at in one way or the other, that type of situation. But in a lot of other societies, it's really not a big deal.
True.
It's really, really not a big deal as long as you have a partner that you both decide to have a kid or two, great.
Yeah.
You respect one another, great.
Yeah.
So, or even as long as you're happy being on your own, great.
Yeah.
Life goes on. So I do applaud you that you've actually taken, this bold step, of saying it's a separation, yes, and the divorce is going to come through once you put a couple of things together, and it's a no with him even wanting to come back. It's definitely not going to happen. But yeah,
Yeah.
no, well done. I'm happy that his family also are aware of his mental state, and I do hope for his own good he also goes to get the help that he needs, so he doesn't do that
Yeah.
to any other woman that comes his way.
Yeah.
For some reason I'm really feeling like you should, if you do get a chance, if you're lucky to probably meet his first wife, maybe you guys can
Yeah.
exchange notes on what exactly happened. Did you really leave?
Yeah.
Was he not at home when you left? What happened?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. But
Yeah.
if that doesn't happen, it's absolutely fine. You've got your little angels. I mean, your first two children are not little anymore,
Yeah.
but and you've got the little angel, of course, to worry about, and three of them to give them the best, and you be the best for it, and the right person for you would come along, as they always say, when you least expect.
Well, we'll see.
So and you never know, it could be any time, doesn't even have to be now, and it could
Sure.
even be now. It happens, they say,
Yeah.
as long as your mind is pure, your heart is pure. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
why not? And if you desire happiness, you will get that happiness, and happiness comes in different form. It starts with you. At the end of the day, your
Yeah.
happiness starts with you, and when you're good for yourself, you'll be good for your kids, and you'll be good for your partner, whoever that is. And you've seen all the red flags now, I'm sure. When the right person comes, and or maybe when the next person comes, I should say, you would know if it's the right person or not,
Right.
once you see a couple of things
Right.
that would probably, flare up, and you'll be like, no, thank you.
Nothing.
Thanks. Not for me, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much for sharing your stories, Zeenah. It is the Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and we at BlueSitron are happy to, welcome people, men and women that have experienced this in its different forms, emotionally, financially, physically, in all the different forms, to share their stories with us, and also to let us know how they've been able to, get away from it and be able to find themselves, all over again, and to be in a better place for themselves and for their kids, for those that have kids. Thank you so, so, so much, Zeenah. I appreciate you. And it's, thank you for the strength for coming out to actually share, because it's not everyone that wants to share their story. And I
Right.
think it's important and pivotal if we share stories, because we can learn from it. For example, when he asked for your number and you called immediately to make sure that, yes, you actually give him the right number. Maybe that's not a red flag, because men tend to do that anyway.
Well, I've
So
never experienced it before, so it was a bit of a shock, and I thought, oh my gosh, thank God I did that. So yeah.
exactly. But yeah, and obviously, maybe within that 3 months, you did say you didn't see anything. But the moment the baby came, he just switched. And,
Yeah.
it's maybe he was already sort of isolating you from his own family during that 3 months without you knowing,
Right.
because he was spending more time with you and your family,
Yeah.
so probably his own family wasn't even in the picture. Maybe that could have also been a red flag to say, oh, so I've met your brother, but we've just only met once or twice. But, is there anything? Can we go for lunch with them? Can I get to know him more? Can I get to know his family if he has, stuff like that?
Yeah.
So, but I mean, we learn every day, don't we? We learn
True.
every day. Thank you so much, Zeenah. I'm not going to take too much of your time again. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for
So,
having me.
yes, we appreciate you. A big thanks to our listeners. Yes, this is part of our experiences segment. Thank you for listening in to our podcast. We'd like to introduce you to our partner, Touchbase Pro, Africa's leading email marketing platform and agency, experts at helping customers make money from their email marketing. And until next time, it's Bim from BlueSitron. Do enjoy the rest of your day wherever you are. Thank you, take care, and goodbye.